Hello everybody, thank you for watching. We are excited to announce another workshop leader at the East Coast Taiko Conference, Isaku.
Hello, my name is Isaku. Excited to be at East Coast Taiko Conference. This will be my third or fourth. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
So Isaku, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you first start playing Taiko and how long have you been playing Taiko for?
So I've been playing since I was 6. So that's 30 some odd years. My first teacher was Mr. Kenny Endo, family friend. I grew up in Tokyo. I was born in San Francisco, grew up in Tokyo, and I went to international school in Tokyo. And my parents said, you're kind of in this international community bubble in Japan, and you don't really interact with Japanese society or Japanese culture. So you need to do something Japanese. And we have our friend, Kenny, who will be your teacher. And I was 6 years old, so I had no say in the matter. But in the end, it worked out. When Kenny moved to Hawaii, he introduced me to Amano Jaku and Mr. Yoichi Watanabe, who is my teacher. I played with them since I was 8. And I toured with them for 4.5 years, 5 years. And then I went to Berklee College of Music, moved to LA, got a master's degree in teaching, and now I work at Asano Taiko US, and I teach at Los Angeles Taiko Institute.
So tell me a little bit more about the Los Angeles Taiko Institute. We have multiple workshop leaders actually coming from LATI, but what do you do there and what are some of the good experiences you had working at LATI?
Well, Lati's a really kind of fun community to be a part of. A lot of people that are just really warm and friendly, and I enjoy working there a lot. Some of the people that I work with, Yuta, Chris, David Wells, Manman. It's couldn't ask for a better place to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how's it for you living out on California and then traveling all the way to the East Coast for this conference? What do you see in differences maybe between your Taiko community in the Los Angeles area where there's probably a lot more influence of Taiko, and then versus coming to the East Coast to our different universities to the East Coast Taiko conference?
Differences between
have you noticed any differences between like East Coast and West Coast, maybe stylistically or even exposure wise or song choices? You don't have to have.
I guess you could say that there's fewer community groups on the East Coast. Generally speaking.
Right.
And a lot of the groups on the East Coast tend to be affiliated with some kind of university or some kind of organization. So in that regard, you have a lot of new people coming in, people graduate, and then they go off into the real world. So you see a lot of new faces, I guess, on the East Coast. West Coast, you tend to see a lot of the same people. I guess that is kind of the difference. I guess on the East Coast, on average you might have younger people playing Taiko. But not really like a huge difference. Yeah.
Okay. One thing that we're working to go over in our conference, in particular, as opposed to other ECTCs, is the idea of roots and progression. And so our theme is really looking at the idea of where we came from and how we developed both ourselves and our communities. In our interviews with Utah and others, one of the things they talked about is even stylistically, some people tend to go back to their roots. So when you look at music that either you compose, or you see other people compose, what are some of the elements that you see that maybe do people return to kind of what they're familiar with, where they're from, or do they really kind of evolve and push the boundaries? What do you think kind of about that?
Well, I tend to play things really safe. So I tend to look at a lot of the older players, study them, and then kind of try to combine those influences and pass them through kind of like my own filter. But definitely, when I see myself play on video, I always see, oh, that's the person, or that's that person, or I definitely feel a lot of those influences. But then again, I also feel inspired by people like Chris, because I always say to Chris that watching him play is like watching like Olympic snowboarding, where there's a trick that they have to do to win the gold medal. And in practice they can do it maybe like 6 or 7 out of 10 times, but it's, can that person pull it off in that moment? And a lot of times, even like Chris will try a really challenging piece, and sometimes he doesn't know if he can pull it off. But there's this beauty in trying, or the attempt. Whereas I came from a school where if you can't do it 99 out of 100 times, then you don't do it. So two very, very different approaches, but kind of in some ways it's been eye-opening to be exposed to other ways of thinking or other approaches.
Yeah. So when you look at your own approach and kind of think about where you've developed, one thing that we tried to hit on with other workshop leaders as well, including members of our own group, is trying to make sure when we're playing taiko we appreciate and really take knowledge of the history behind taiko, and that's not just a drumstick and a drum, that all of these pieces of equipment, they all have history and context in Japanese culture. So what are some ways that you keep the context of taiko in the forefront when you're teaching or when you're practicing?
Well, the style of taiko that I is rooted in Obon festival, and I teach an Obon drumming class at Lati, and I think no matter what I'm playing, regardless of whether it's producing a hip hop track or anything, I always feel like I'm looking at it through these like glasses of an Obon taiko player or a kumi taiko player. I always feel that influence somewhere, and in some ways it can be kind of like constraining, but in other ways I think it's kind of what gives me a kind of a unique flavor.
That's really cool. Yeah, taking your own style is something that's really interesting, and from my experience just interviewing all of our workshop leaders, it's been really cool to see their own takes on their stylistic developments just as an artist. And what's important to you when you're sharing that to all these people who, from a member who's gone to ECTC as a participant, it's really cool to be able to meet all these different workshop leaders and really talk to them and get to know them a little bit. So what do you think is valuable being able to talk to people who may not have access to the caliber of workshop leaders or equipment at their local taiko community?
I think it ultimately boils down to, did they have fun? Because the fun is kind of what drives the gears, or it's kind of like what lights the fire to explore more, and there's only so much that you can teach in a 2.5 hour or 3 hour workshop, right? But you can hopefully kind of like kindle that fire so that the person wants to explore more, or they seek out more information, or they seek out more, and it's really kind of trying to make sure that they have fun, that they meet new people, that they make friends, trying to facilitate that as much as possible, so that it leads to more things that go beyond just the workshop or beyond ECTC, and kind of
start talking about ECTC, one of the really hallmarks of the conference is that there are people there, like yourself, and even participants who played for well over 5 or 10 years, or even decades. And then there are participants who've gone there, and it's like their second week playing taiko. That's something that's really special. And what is some advice that you would have to people who are just starting out playing taiko, who's either going to this conference or even now? What are some pieces of advice that you would give to them as they try to learn more about taiko?
I guess this is something that I would say to a younger version of myself, and that is to like not be a taiko snob.
Okay, keep going.
I think there was a time and place where I was definitely a taiko snob. You know, this is not up to par or blah 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 blah, and that really hurt my growth as a taiko player and as a person. Like I think I missed out on a lot because I was a snob. So don't be a snob.
That's a good piece of advice. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh my gosh, that's great. You know, we talked about workshops being a really big aspect of ECTC and really important to the development of the taiko community, but I think one aspect that certainly people don't underrate is the concert. It's really, really excellent, fantastic. And one thing, last year that you were ECTC, you and Joe Small collaborated on Propel. What was that process like, working with him and putting that performance on? Because it was a performance I know from my own perspective, from all of our groups, we all thoroughly enjoyed. It was fantastic. So what kind of went into that?
So there was a residency at Swarthmore where Joe teaches during the summer, and we got together with Joe, Christy Oshiro, great taiko player, and 3 tabla players and 3 dancers. And Propel was kind of like the taiko feature piece that Joe brought, and the 3 of us performed it. I think it was September-ish. So, you know, when we were going to play at ECTC, Joe's been teaching the Swarthmore students that piece, and he said, you know, if you're going to be at ECTC, then would you mind sitting in? So I was like, yeah, sure, you know, we can make that happen.
And you did. It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
It was awesome. Definitely loved being the audience. That's a really unique piece, and you can find it on YouTube. We'll put the link in the description below. I feel like a YouTube person now. We put the link in the description below. You know, back towards ECTC. Actually, back away from ECTC. One cool thing about the conference is you get to meet all these workshop leaders like Isaku. When you take workshops with them, you know, it's not workshops of 60 people. It's not like a big lecture hall where you're sitting down and the professor's just lecturing to you. You get to actually meet them and know them a little bit. So we're going to ask a few questions to really get to know you a little bit more and have the audience get to know you. To start out, we'll do a little bit of a doozy. What is the most unusual place that you've ever found yourself playing taiko?
So I played at this tattoo. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a tattoo event. So whatever, it starts at 6 or whatever and it ends like at midnight or something. And we played pretty late in the night. So, and all throughout the night, there's tattoo artists tattooing people. So, you know, whenever they're tattooing throughout the night, and then we play, and then we finish, and then there's like all these like fully tattooed, almost nude people like walking or you know, it's kind of like a fashion show almost. Yeah, that was kind of a bizarre experience.
What are some things that you think, you know, while you're at LATI, it's cool that you get a chance to work with people like Utah and Chris. You guys teach a lot of workshops together or collaborate on pieces. What's it like to work with the other workshop leaders? And then also even at the conference, what's one part you like about seeing the other workshop leaders? Is just meeting up with close friends, stuff like that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
So
we're
working
gonna,
with
that was what I'm trying to phrase. You know, so at LATI, it's really neat that you have an opportunity to work, not just you, but Chris, Utah, and others. And at ECTC, of course, we have 16 workshop leaders coming. What is one thing that you think is cool or special, either at your job or at ECTC, getting to see all these other Taekwondo players and get their knowledge and learn from them, or show them up? Either way, whichever one you do. I mean,
No, not gonna show it. Not showing anybody. It's an interesting question because I see Utah, Chris, those guys almost every day or every other day. So, being exposed to ways that you're not used to doing things or different approaches, either you think, oh, that's a really cool way of doing it, I want to adopt that way, or you think, oh, that's also a valid way of doing things, but I'm going to do it this other way. And either way, it kind of teaches you something about yourself, and what I think is important or what I value more or less, like my Taiko values hierarchy or whatever. It kind of sheds light on those things. So I think, meeting new people, hearing their ideas, kind of sheds light on who I am.
That's really neat. And kind of going to the theme of ideas, one of your compositions, as I'm sure a lot of people watching will know, Ray, is a song that you had workshopped with us a while ago. That was a really fun piece to work on. What were some things that you took inspiration from when writing? Can you talk a little bit about your process as you maybe composed, how you were inspired? Did just the rhythm hit you, or did you start working on it? What was your kind of process developing, right?
So that piece is in dedication to my teacher, Mr. Yoichi Watanabe, and his style of Odaiko. I entered several Odaiko competitions, and in the process, I spent a lot of time exploring Odaiko with him. And that piece is kind of like the essence of what I think, or what I've learned about what I think good Odaiko playing is. So some of the influences, definitely a lot of Watanabe Sensei moves in there. The approach of using Hogaku-esque elements or Hogaku-influenced elements, Edobayashi influenced elements, where you take kind of tradition and you put it in a different context. Those elements are definitely in there. But I also have a Jimi Hendrix lick in there.
Nice.
And it's the part, like the intro to Voodoo Child, where he's kind of scratching on the guitar, get it, and then so I kind of threw that in there, just because it's fun, and because when it's played in a certain way, it's not gonna sound like that. It's gonna sound like this new thing, or it's almost gonna sound like it was meant for Odaiko. So I was like, that's kind of a cool thing to throw in there.
Yeah, one cool thing too I like about Ray is, when you picture Odaiko, at first you just you have the guy or a girl up right in front of a drum getting ready to play. And I think one thing that's cool about Ray, and the one thing you do, and that will show video over me talking, is during Ray you don't just stay in that traditional Odaiko stance. You get some movement involved and play a little bit sideways and face the audience a little bit more. What do you think about working outside of the literal space box, or trying to develop moves that may not just be so static and trying to make your work more dynamic?
It's something that kind of shifts the lens a little bit. Like if you're watching a video and there's multiple camera angles, then it kind of helps maintain your interest, as opposed to seeing the same thing from the same angle the whole time. So it's kind of like that, where you kind of see the players from a different angle, basically.
That's really neat. So before we end, we'll do a couple more things. I'll go ahead and ask. So Isaku, where can the audience follow you? I know you have YouTube and some social media that you post some instructional videos and some other content from. So where can people find you?
Well, I have a website, isakukageyama.com. It's kind of like becoming a repository of all the social media and everything. So Isaku Kageyama.
Great. So we'll show people that. And then, are you part of Unit 1?
Yeah.
Yep. So, so I guess the last kind of question before we end, what has being part of Unit 1 been like? I think certainly a lot of worship leaders have their own troops, and especially for us college students or just, average taekwondo players who've been playing just for a couple years or less, it's really cool to look and see videos of all of these really experienced taekwondo players playing together. What's some good experiences or crazy things that you have done as part of Unit 1?
Crazy things?
crazy
I
or
haven't
good?
really done anything crazy with Unit 1. But I do remember living in Boston. This is when I was attending Berklee College of Music. And there isn't any like taekwondo department at Berklee.
Mm-hmm.
There's no taekwondo club at Berklee. There's taekwondo in Boston.
Right.
And I got an opportunity to meet with some of the players in Boston. But there's a certain like lineage of kumidaiko that I'm from, and I really missed playing that aesthetic. There's certain rhythms like the way somebody plays don't or like there's that when you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, like it's like, oh, I want to play, and I think the members of Unit 1, like we all come from various lineages, but you know how the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Like if you go back a couple generations, then we are kind of from a similar tree. So in that regards, that aesthetic is pretty close to what I'm used to, and it was something that I really missed, and it's given me my taiko or my kumidaiko fix.
And if anyone else wants their kumidaiko fix, come to ECTC. We will have plenty of drums, plenty of instructors, and really wonderful people that you'll be able to get to meet and be part of a larger community of kumidaiko players. If you'd like to help support ECTC, this wonderful conference initiative, and also have a chance to win a brand new Okedo, Bachi, Fue, any other equipment from Asano Taiko, please check us out. Go on our Facebook page, we'll have links. And thank you so much for watching.